the heart of Igbo land, where the red earth meets the sky and the smell of fresh palm wine lingers in the air, there was a village called Umueze, a village steeped in tradition, where old beliefs mixed with new realities, and where love, though cherished, could sometimes seem fragile. Ngozi and Obinna were two souls bound by fate. Their love story was a tale of destiny, two people from different worlds brought together in an unexpected twist. Ngozi, a woman of grace, born into a family of humble farmers, was renowned in the village for her beauty and intelligence. Obinna, on the other hand, came from a wealthy family. His father owned the largest palm oil factory in the village, and his mother was the daughter of the village chief. He was a man of ambition, charm, and a hint of arrogance that only wealth could bring. Their love was sudden and fierce, like a storm sweeping through a quiet night. It was love at first sight when Obinna laid eyes on Ngozi at the annual Igbo festival. She was wearing a bright yellow jeel, and her laughter was like the sound of birds in the morning. Obinna, never one to shy away from pursuing what he wanted, approached her. His words, though simple, were laced with a sincerity that caught her off guard. "Your beauty is like the sunrise, Ngozi. It shines even in the darkest of times." Ngozi, though surprised by his forwardness, couldn't help but smile. She had heard of Obinna's wealth, but she had never thought him capable of such words. And so they began their journey, an unlikely pair. Despite their different social statuses, love blossomed between them. After a whirlwind romance, they married in a grand ceremony, attended by the who's who of the village, and their families watched on with pride. Life seemed perfect, or so they thought. But like many marriages, the magic didn't last long. What started as a passionate love affair soon turned into constant arguments. At first, it was the little things: Obinna's late nights at the factory, Ngozi's constant need to be around her family, his stubbornness, her over-reliance on her mother's advice. Their arguments grew more frequent, more intense, until it seemed as though their home was a battlefield. Ngozi would lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering where it had all gone wrong. Obinna, too, was frustrated, but his pride and stubbornness wouldn't allow him to admit it. He would storm out of the house in anger, only to return with his anger simmering beneath the surface. Despite the love they once shared, it felt like the spark was fading. It was on a particularly heated afternoon that Ngozi, tired of the constant bickering, decided to seek help from the one person she trusted above all, her grandmother, Nneka. Nneka was a wise woman, known throughout the village for her deep understanding of life's struggles and the healing power of nature. She had lived through storms of her own and had seen love both thrive and wither. Ngozi arrived at Nneka's small hut, a cozy place filled with the sweet scent of dried herbs and the soft murmur of the river in the distance. Nneka, sitting by the fire, looked up as Ngozi entered, her face a mix of concern and curiosity. "My child," Nneka said, "you look troubled. What weighs on your heart?" Tears welled up in Ngozi's eyes as she recounted the state of her marriage. She spoke of the arguments, the constant misunderstandings, and the frustration that seemed to hang in the air. Nneka listened quietly, her wrinkled hands resting in her lap. "Love is like a plant, my dear. It needs constant care. But sometimes we forget to water it, and it withers," Nneka said, her voice soft but steady. "But fear not. I have something for you." Nneka reached into her basket and pulled out a small, smooth stone. It was a deep shade of green, almost as if it had absorbed the life of the forest itself. "This stone," Nneka explained, "is a gift from the ancestors. It holds the power to calm the storms in the heart. Whenever you and your husband argue, take this stone and place it in your mouth. Do not speak. Let the stone speak for you, and let silence bring peace. It will remind you that love does not need words, only understanding." Ngozi looked at the stone, unsure of what to make of it. It seemed so simple, so ordinary, but there was a deep wisdom in Nneka's eyes, a wisdom that came from years of living and loving. "Do not question it, my child. Just trust in its power," Nneka added with a knowing smile. With a heavy heart but a spark of hope, Ngozi left her grandmother's hut and returned home. She wasn't sure if the stone would work, but she was willing to try anything to save her marriage. That evening, as she and Obinna began yet another argument, this time about his late return from the factory, Ngozi remembered the stone. Quietly, she took it from her pocket, placed it in her mouth, and sat down on the wooden bench by the window. Obinna, still angry, didn't notice at first. He ranted about how she never understood the pressures of his work, how she was too attached to her family, how she didn't respect him. But Ngozi said nothing. For the first time in months, the silence between them was palpable. It was as if the world outside had paused, holding its breath. Obinna stopped mid-sentence, his words caught in his throat. He looked at her, confused, his anger slowly dissolving into uncertainty. There was something different in her eyes, something he hadn't seen in a long time. Peace. After what seemed like an eternity, he sat beside her. His voice was softer now, almost apologetic. "Ngozi, I don't know what's happening to us," he said, his frustration replaced by vulnerability. "I love you, but I don't know how to make this right." Ngozi smiled softly, the stone still nestled in her mouth. She couldn't speak, but her eyes said everything. She wasn't angry anymore. She understood. It was as if the stone had taken the weight of their words, giving them space to heal. As the days went by, Ngozi continued to use the stone. Each time an argument threatened to break out, she would place it in her mouth, and the silence between them would lead to understanding. Slowly but surely, the tension in their home began to fade. The arguments grew less frequent, and the love that had once brought them together began to rekindle. But there was still much to learn. Despite the stone's magic, both Ngozi and Obinna knew that they couldn't rely on it forever. They had to work together to nurture their love in ways beyond silence. But for now, the stone had done its job. It had saved their marriage, and it had given them a chance to start again. As days passed, the magic stone became a quiet presence in their lives, a simple but powerful reminder of the strength of silence in healing wounds. Ngozi and Obinna, once caught in a whirlwind of arguments and misunderstandings, began to find a new rhythm in their relationship. The stone, small and unassuming, had worked wonders, but they knew it was not a permanent solution. It had provided them with a moment of peace, a pause in the chaos, but now it was time to rebuild what had almost crumbled. One evening, after a long day of work at the palm oil factory, Obinna returned home exhausted, his shoulders slumped with the weight of responsibilities. Ngozi had prepared his favorite meal, steamed fish with yam pottage, and the aroma filled the air. She had learned through the arguments to care for the little things, to make him feel loved and valued. When he entered, she greeted him with a soft smile, setting the table. The tension that had once lingered between them was now replaced by something gentler. "You've been working too hard, Obinna," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "You need to rest." He looked at her, a bit surprised. The woman who once would have scolded him for leaving early in the morning and coming back late was now showing him care in a way that felt new. He sat down at the table, his usual pride softened by the kindness in her eyes. "I don't know how you do it, Ngozi," he admitted, picking up his spoon. "Sometimes I think I'm drowning in all this pressure, but when I come home and see you, everything feels like it might be okay again." Ngozi smiled, her heart swelling with affection. The stone had worked, yes, but this moment, the calm, the understanding, was something even more powerful. It wasn't about silencing their voices, but about learning to listen to each other. After dinner, as they cleaned up together, Obinna spoke again. "Ngozi, I've been thinking. I know I've been hard on you. I think I've been too focused on the factory, too focused on what everyone expects from me. But I've forgotten what really matters, us." His words hung in the air like the sweet scent of rain on dry earth. Ngozi looked at him, seeing the vulnerability in his eyes. He wasn't the man who had stormed out of the house during their arguments anymore. He was the man she had fallen in love with, the man who cared deeply, even if he hadn't always known how to show it. "Obinna," she said softly, "I'm not perfect either. I should have been more understanding. I let my pride get in the way too. But we can make this work together. We just have to keep trying." They stood there in the quiet kitchen, The sounds of the village night humming outside. The stone that had once been a symbol of silence and magic was now tucked away in a small corner of the house, no longer needed for every argument. They had moved beyond it, into a place where communication flowed freely and where love, once tested, was now more deeply rooted. That night, as they lay in bed, Ngozi turned to Obinna and whispered, "Do you remember the first time we met? At the festival? When you told me my beauty was like the sunrise?" Obinna chuckled softly, his arm around her. "I remember. I thought you'd laugh at me for being so bold, but you didn't. You just smiled, and my heart knew then that I couldn't let you go." "It feels like we've come a long way," Ngozi said, resting her head on his chest. "Yes," he agreed. "And we still have a long way to go, but we'll go together. That's all I need." As they drifted off to sleep, the village outside humming with life, Ngozi knew one thing for certain. Love wasn't just about grand gestures or magic stones. It was about the quiet moments, the shared silences, and the willingness to fight, not against each other, but for each other. It wasn't the stone that saved their marriage. It was their willingness to look beyond their differences, to listen and to care in the way that truly mattered.